All right, let's continue on in this packet here. The next section that we are looking at today, now we have section 5.5. This is solve a linear inequality and graph the solution set. Okay, so to start, we have, does 4 satisfy the inequality 2x minus 3 is less than 7? Okay, so let's go and see. So we are going to plug in that 4 and see if that is true. Okay, so I have 2x minus 3. Is that less than 7? So we'll plug in, actually I'm not going to put the question mark yet because I haven't put in the 4. So we have 2 times the 4 minus 3. Now we're wondering, is that less than 7? Okay, so 2 times 4, I get an 8 minus 3. Is that less than 7? And 8 minus 3 is 5. So is 5 less than 7? Yes. Sometimes people are kind of confused on which one is which for the less than, greater than. So I'm just going to write those down just in case if you need it. So like we've been saying, this one is less than. There's also less than or equal to that looks like that. Then there's greater than. Then greater than or equal to. I don't know if they still do it now, but when I was in school, they told us that was like an alligator mouth, and the alligator was hungry and eat the bigger number, right? So here we can see that the 7 is being eaten by the alligator, right? So 7 is bigger than the 5. So we have 5 is less than 7. Try the next one. Tell me if you think 6 satisfies that inequality. Okay, so go ahead and try it. Come back when you're ready. All right, so I plugged it in. Now I'm looking at a 12 minus 3, and that is 9. So is 9 less than 7? No. So we'll put a big slash through it. No, 6 does not satisfy that inequality. Okay, turn the page. And now we have example 2. Describe the solution set as an inequality. That's just a fancy way of saying, tell me what x is. Okay. So as the inequality and in a graph. So you can see the number line down there. That's what our graph is in this section. It's just a number line. And then I put in a little note in your homework, in your book. It's going to say something about interval notation. And usually I just say skip that. But now that I'm thinking about it, that will probably actually show up if it's on the online homework. So we will wing it, and we will also cover interval notation, okay? So let's go and get started here. So just treat the inequality as an equals at first. Just don't worry about it, okay? So just like before, we would want to get that x by itself. So we would add 3 to both sides. So we'd have a 2x, and then just bring the sign. Is less than 10. Okay, and then just like before, divide to get that x by itself. And we have x is less than 5. Okay, so now we actually have to check this. Okay, so let me start. Let's also do it as the graph as we're doing this, okay? So first, I'm going to go ahead and put a 5 here. And you can label as much or as little as you want. At least tell me what the number is. And it's nice if you put some things around it. So I'm just going to skip every other one and go up or down a couple. So since we got x is less than 5, we're going to go ahead and do an open circle. Okay, so the open circle means we don't include it. So you will use that open circle for your less than and then for your greater than. If you have the signs less than or equal to or greater than or equal to, then you will have that circle, but we'll fill it in because we will be including it because it's this line here, it means or equal to, right? Let me write this, or equal to, so we're going to include it. If it's the greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. Okay, so I'm actually not going to have us do the check part because that's going to get kind of confusing and I really don't want to try to confuse you. Okay, so now I have the x minus 5. So now we have to figure out what side of the number line are we going to shade. Are we going to shade the left part of the 5 or the right? So it says x is less than 5. So there's two different ways to do this. I usually just kind of pick a number and plug it in and see if it works. So like if I picked 7 on the right, 7 is not less than 5. So I know nothing over there will work. But say if I picked the 3, 3 is less than 5. So this entire side over here, you just make a nice big thick line like this and just put a giant arrow on it. Okay, it's a nice thick line. So that means that everything in that shaded part is true. So like 1 is less than 5, 0 is less than 5. All of the negative numbers are less than 5. Okay, so I think that looks good for that one. Let's do this problem. If it had been, just because I remember some people getting confused on this. Just say, what if it had been the exact same problem, but had the or equal to under it? So then we would get the x is less than or equal to 5. So in that case, I'm just going to sketch it in real quick here. This would be our 5, right? So now since it's or equal to, we want to include that 5. So the open circle means go up infinitely close to it, but don't count that 5. So the underline, the or equal to, we want to count it. So we're going to shade it in really good. Okay, and then we're going to draw this over. Super big arrow. And I had told you that I just like to kind of pick a number and see if it works, and then I know everything on that side's going to work. Another way that you can do it is if you have, let me change color since I can't point like if we were in the classroom. Let me just try to draw. So do you see that the x is over here on the left? As long as that x is over on the left, this sign is pointing. It's telling you where the arrow goes. So do you see it's pointing this way? So it's telling you it goes that way. Okay. So it's pointing which side you have to shade. That only works, though, if you make sure that the x is on the left, okay? All right. Go ahead and give this one a try, and let's see how you do, okay? So do this problem number 2. Hit pause, come back when you're ready. Well, actually, you know what? I'm kidding. Let's not have you do that, because this one does have something different. Yeah. Something different, because you know what we're going to do, right? Is we're going to divide both sides by the -3, but there's a tiny little difference here in this, and that you know that the x goes here, and you know that, you know this is going to be a 4, right? However, there is something new that I haven't told you yet, so that's why I didn't want to cut you loose quite yet, is that whenever we multiply, this is important, so I'm writing it out. Multiply or divide by a negative, we reverse the inequality. Okay, so see how we just did -3, we divided by a -3. I write this on my paper so I don't forget. I write reverse. And what that means is we're going to take this, and now he goes the other way. Okay, so he was open side was on the left, so we reverse it. So that's whenever we multiply or divide by a negative, because when we're doing that, we're messing with the negative, so we're totally flip-flopping it, right? So the answer is x is less than or equal to 4. Okay, before we graph this one, I want to jump back. So take a look up here at this number 1. I forgot that we were going to wing it about the interval notation. Okay, so interval notation, if it is something with the open circle like this, we use a soft parenthesis. And if it's closed like this, we use what's called a hard parenthesis or a bracket. Okay, now here, let's do the interval notation. This is my 5. This is where it ends, right here on the right. So I'm going to put, do you think a soft or hard bracket? I'm going to put a soft parenthesis right here because that is an open circle. Now my interval is going to have 2 numbers. This other number, lots of choices, right? Because it goes off to infinity. So what actually goes here is negative infinity. Okay? Now over here in this one on the right, we have that 5. That would be a hard bracket. The starting point would be negative infinity. And infinity is always that soft parenthesis. Okay, so this is just telling us that it starts here at negative infinity, and it goes all the way up to 5, and then it stops. Okay, interval notation for this one is it is at that 4, right? And we are including that 4, so it'd be a hard bracket. And it starts at negative infinity, which would be a soft parenthesis. Okay, so now let's go ahead and plot this. So again, put as many numbers as you like. I'm just going to do that. It's at the 4, right? Do I fill it in or leave it open? I want to fill it in because we're going to include it, right? And then does it go to the left or to the right? Goes to the left, because if you look, you can see that the arrow, the inequality, is pointing that way for us. Okay, or you could try plugging in a number, say like 2. Yes, 2 is less than or equal to 4, so we know that everything over here is going to work. So shade it in really good and put a giant arrow. All right, that one is done. Okay, now I think I can cut you loose to try some. Just try this number 3, okay? Let's not do too much. Just try this number 3. Hit pause. Come back when you're ready. All right, so I divided both sides by 3, and I got x is greater than or equal to negative 4. So I went to negative 4 on my number line. I put in a solid circle because it's the or equal to with the line under it. And I could see that the arrow pointed to the right, or I could also plug in a number, say like over on that side 0. 0 is greater than or equal to negative 4, so I know everything on that side will work. My interval notation, this time the graph starts on the left, so it's got that hard bracket, negative 4, goes up to positive infinity in this case. And the infinity, again, always that soft parenthesis. All right, I think we're getting it. Go ahead and try number 4. Come back when you're ready. All right, I'm going to stop here real quick. You might have done something different. You actually probably did. You probably subtracted the 2x. But just follow along with me. Just check my work with me, just so that we can have this little moment here to practice something. Okay, so I did the minus 6x. Then I'm sure from now you can see why I had to add the 5, right? So I got all my x's to one side, constants to the other. Now look at this. Now in my case, what do I have to do? So again, you might not have done it this way, so you wouldn't have to do it. But what am I doing? I'm dividing by a -4. What do I have to do when I divide by a negative? Reverse it. Okay, so it's pointing to the right. So now I'm going to make it point to the left. And I get x is less than -2. Okay, so you might have done it different. You might have gotten your final answer to look like this. It would be a -2 is greater than x. Mathematically, that is exactly the same. However, if you do it this way, your x is on the right, so you can't use that little method of the sign being the arrow that points on which way to go, but that is still a correct answer. Okay, so let's go ahead and graph it. So I have x is less than -2, so I'll go to put some numbers on here first. Let's do that. -2, 0, let's go -4 about there. Is it going to be open circle or closed? It is open, all right, because it's not the or equal to, and it heads off to the left. And for this one, if I were to use like the guess and check, I'd probably put in 0. I would see that 0 is not less than -2, so I would know that I can't shade anything over here on this side, that it would have to be the opposite. And let's not forget that interval notation. So it looks like it's starting here at -infinity. Comma, all the way up to 2. 2 is not included, so it's soft. All right, here is number 5. Go ahead and try this one. At the end, when you get a fraction, you can go ahead and change that to a decimal, okay? So that makes your graphing easier for you. Okay, so go ahead and give it a try. Come back when you're ready. All right, I'm going to stop here for just a second. So I distributed, moved my x's to one side, constants to the other. Right now I have a -3/2 is less than x. I'm going to write that down. And I know that bothers a lot of people to have the x on the right, so let's go ahead and flip it. Okay, so I'm going to have x over here and -3/2 over here. And now if the alligator's eating the x, make sure he's still eating the x. Whoops, just like that. There we go. Okay, and then when you go to graph it, 3/2 might be kind of hard for you to visualize. So if you want to, you can go ahead and simplify that. So that would be either 1 and 1/2, or if you would rather have the decimal, that would be a -1.5. Okay, so I'm going to write both those. And different people see it different ways. So either way is fine with me to think of it. If you don't see it as either of those ways, just on your calculator, punch 3 divided by 2, and you'll get that 1.5. Okay, so then you can see that 1.5 for you. And let's go ahead and graph. So here's how I'm going to graph it. I'm going to go -2, -3. Let me just put in a few things here. There we go. So at -1.5 or 1.5. So that's going to be right in between the 1 and the 2, right? Because it's -1.5. So is it open or closed? It's an open circle. So I'm just going to squeeze it in between. I know it's not perfect. We're doing this by hand, so as long as it's approximately right, it looks good to me. Okay, and then we want to figure out what side to shade. So we could plug in some numbers. Say I like 0. So if this works, if 0 works, If 0 works when I plug it in, we're going to shade that entire side. Okay, so I'm wondering, is 0 greater than a negative 3/2? It sure is. So I'm going to shade all of that. Put giant arrow. And my interval, this time it starts at negative 1.5, not including 1.5, so it's soft, not the hard bracket, comma, all the way up to positive infinity. Infinity is always the soft bracket. Okay, now we are getting into, looks like some decimals and fractions. Okay, so go ahead and try both of those. Okay, so go ahead and do both 6 and 7. I'm going to put the answer up on the screen for you, okay, so that when you pause it, you can check. So x is greater than or equal to 3.5 for 6, and x is less than or equal to 1/2 for 7. Okay, so go ahead and hit pause there. Give it a try. Come back when you're ready. All right, let's go and walk you through these. So I subtracted that 4.1, and then when I divided by a negative 2.9, I had to reverse that inequality because I divided by a negative. So I got x is greater than or equal to 3.5. I went to 3.5. I put in a closed solid circle because it's the or equal to, and I saw that it went off to the right. My interval started at a hard bracket 3.5 going up to infinity. In my second one here, I have a fraction. I wanted to find that least common multiple so that I can multiply every single term by that 6 to wipe out the fractions. So I put in some space, multiplied everything by the 6. I got 4x plus 3 is less than or equal to 5. And subtracted, divided both sides by 4. I got x is less than or equal to 1/2. So I went to 1/2, put in that solid closed circle because we do include it, goes off to the left. So that means that our interval is the soft bracket, negative infinity, all the way up to 1/2 would be our hard bracket because it is included. And that is actually the end of this section. So good job today. I hope you have a wonderful day.